Drinking, actually, it's a sort of Ben Nevis, one of their private label scotches. So a nice sort of midweight scotch, very good. It's a fall day, but not super chilly, so stay away from the Islay stuff. So it's Lance Bromond, who's the CEO of Urban Daddy, it was sort of his vision originally came up with this idea that people who were, sort of educated, active, like good food, good drink, like nice things like, men's fashion, all that stuff. Men at that time, back in sort of 2004, early 2005, didn't really have a go-to publication, at least sort of the one thing you need to know in your city every day. And he sort of conceived of this as being that publication that would do that. It would sort of, present, content that was reliable, noteworthy, unique, so people wouldn't see things that were, repetitive everywhere. And at the time there wasn't a whole lot else out there. So he came up with the idea, and he recruited 3 others of us to really sort of come on board and start this with him. And my job was to sort of help shape the voice of the publication, among other things. And so we started out very, very small, very, very lean. And it grew sort of by leaps and bounds over the years, to the point now where it's 100 plus people in New York, 3 million plus subscribers at this point, and a whole bunch. Our iPhone app has sort of become massively popular for Android as well. The Urban Daddy Next Move. I have some connections to finance, and I think he was probably just saying something off the cuff. I think you never want to bring those particular names into a conversation. I think I'm sure if he thought about it in hindsight, if he'd had a few seconds to think about it, he probably wouldn't have used those names. He said as much, at least, and sort of recanted. I mean, in this day and age, things get circulated very quickly in terms of people picking up on it, and if you sort of insult a component of your target audience, they may sort of vote with their feet and go somewhere else. That being said, he's Mario Batali. The restaurants are very good, and I don't think it'll have a long-term effect on anything. I think, but it's an interesting to talk about, and with all of these sort of Occupy Wall Street, I mean, it's sort of like the topic du jour, and I think it's because of that, people are more attuned to those kinds of comments, and also I think people who are being targeted by the comments are a little more sensitive about it. It's interesting. I mean, to some extent, I thought when it was getting a little colder, they would be sort of gone by now, just because human nature, I would think. But I'll give them credit for sticking around. It's hard to sort of, for me, to really get a sense of what they're. I've read the manifesto and all that, and I have a lot of friends, both pro and con, sort of on this debate. But I think it's hard to say exactly what they want and what they stand for. They obviously, what they want is something, for things to be fairer, etc. I think a lot of people get behind that, but how you accomplish that is sort of something completely different. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But at the moment, if they want to do it, I think at some point, you can't just sort of camp out forever. But I mean, for a period of time, if they've got the sort of guts to stick it out there in New York winter. Sort of depends what I'm looking for. If you have sort of your restaurants when people come in from out of town and they sort of say, "Oh, I want some place that's cool and New Yorky." For that, I really like. Public has been a go-to restaurant of mine since it opened basically in 2003. My wife is from New Zealand, and one of the public founders is Peter Gordon's a New Zealand chef. But I've always found the design is great, the food's great, the service is excellent, and it kind of looks like a kind of cool place. I love 11 Madison for sort of slightly higher end meals, just really fantastic. Michael White, I think, is knocking it out of the park as far as various kinds of Italian goes. So I mean, I really like what he's done with Osteria Morini, and I Fiore is a great business lunch place. So if you're sort of looking to go out and do something more on the corporate side. It's hard for me to say what my hands-down favorite burger is, because it depends, I guess, what you're in the mood for, right? Do you want like a really sort of big kind of burger? You're just looking for the simple, essential goodness. But right now, I'm actually loving the burger at Saxon and Parole, which just opened a couple months ago. But that's they do it. It's a quasi, almost New Zealand Aussie style, because it's got the egg on it. But they also do, I think, it's Gruyere cheese. It's just a really hearty, kind of satisfying burger. Hard to go wrong with like the Shake Shack burger. On the aside if you can, I don't have a huge tolerance for lines, so I have to sort of pick my moments. We live sort of almost in a golden age of burgers at this point in New York. It sounds flippant, but I think that it's, to some extent, that obviously took off a few years ago. And you don't want to see it sort of overly fetishized, but there's been some really great stuff that's been done, I guess, on the burger. I guess it's a couple of things. One, like when we sort of had, when Urban Daddy first started, I guess we were our own target audience. So it was, and I think there's something very gratifying, I think, in people saying, I really like this piece today, or this really helped me out. And part of the reason that it started was even just that people were always asking us for recommendations anyhow. We sort of said, well, obviously there must be some skill at this, or at least some knowledge of this, and so maybe it's something we should do on a more sort of full-fledged level. But I think that it's just very satisfying. I've also always had a passion for writing and sort of editorial. My parents were both English professors, so it sort of was ingrained into me. So I think it's a nice way to sort of do something that involves some creativity, but also a lot of discipline in terms of the format and the presentation, and what meets the bar for coverage and things like that. And you get that sort of nice, when you get it wrong, people let you know, but when you get it right, people are also nice enough to let you know, and that's a very good feeling. And they're also all just things I like to do. I love going out to eat. I'm born in New York, and love it here because there's so much in terms of variety, in terms of dining and drinking. There's things to do. And travel I absolutely love as well.
Tomorrow.